Hey friends, Brea Katrin here. I am a self-directed neuroplasticity coach. I focus on healing through relationship with God through Jesus Christ. I'm here to spend a little more time getting into the brain and the nervous system. For those of you who've not done any brain training before, maybe you're coming through a lens of healing through faith in our Lord Jesus Christ and his love and just receiving from him. Get a lot of people coming from that lens, especially from sort of that Protestant word of faith, or kind of Andrew Womack, Joseph Prince, I guess areas of the church that focus so much on healing. And I think it's so beautiful that they do, but they've not heard much about the brain. And specifically today, I want to talk about the limbic system. I go into a lot more detail in the courses that I teach to help people to understand. My first course, Gateway to Healing, you get a whole lot of this stuff that helps to understand what the heck is going on and understanding your condition through a scientific lens. So let's just dive right in. What I want to do, though, is make a connection between the limbic system and your heart and God's love. So what is the limbic system, for those of you who don't know? Why is it so important? All right, before I talk about the limbic system, let's talk about disease. Let's talk about the nervous system. What I've come to really understand through a completely scientific lens, but there's such huge overlap, and if you watch my other videos, hopefully you've gotten a little bit more of this, is that illness itself, disease itself, the disease process in the body, the brain is, pardon me, the control center for optimal health. And as we get out of that state of rest and digest, which you think about, it's resting in God, ultimately, in his love, that we get tripped into this other state, the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight, the one that's kind of turning on the like problem to solve, threat. And it's okay to protect, it's there to protect ourselves short term, run from a bear or whatever it is, but it's not good for that to stay on. And it becomes this very vigilant state through stress. Stress, if you don't already know this, is the cause of almost every chronic illness out there. So if you understand just even those two basic things, you can understand that a body that is, and a brain, ultimately, because your brain is in your central nervous system and your peripheral nervous system, there's different parts of it, but you've got your autonomic nervous system, which is this automatic nervous system. Oh man, I'm trying not to get too into the weeds right now. The automatic nervous system, where things like heart rate, digestion, your breathing, just these things, blood pressure, there's so much more that just automatically is taking place without you having to consciously do anything. It's all happening through that autonomic nervous system. And so there's signaling that's happening all the time between your brain and your body. Your body is sending signals actually back up to your brain. Your brain is like processing everything and then figuring out what are we going to do? How are we going to react? How are we going to respond? And we want that body to be in what's called a parasympathetic state for healing, rest and digest, the peace of God. Think about it. So your limbic system, again, part of the brain, that's part of that control center. Some people believe in evolution, which I do not anymore. Someone who studied evolution at Princeton and Yale, do not believe in evolution. They would say that that's the primitive brain, that, you know, we eventually evolved to have what's called your prefrontal cortex. I'm like, no, God just made us this way. Anyway, so your more primitive brain, or your lower brain, as is called, in your temporal lobe, is your limbic system. And there's four main parts of it. It's at the seat of your autonomic nervous system. So the signaling happening in there is directly like signaling to your automatic nervous system. What do? Do we think about it when you get stressed out? When you're nervous, you're about to go on and speak and present in front of people. Is your heart racing a little higher? Maybe you've got a little bit of heat in your body. Maybe you have to pee. Maybe you've got sweat. Maybe there's thoughts racing in your mind. What's happening? So your autonomic nervous system, your limbic system is right there. Your limbic system Okay, Lord, help me with this. It's your emotional chemical brain, and it's very connected and tied to memory as well. So there's process. Let's just talk about the main parts of the limbic system. The four, there's your amygdala, which most people probably know about. That's your emotional processing center. More specifically, I mean, it's involved in memories as well. And there's a few other things I'm forgetting right now, but specifically, especially to do with fear in the amygdala. So that's a big one. Your hippocampus, which is your is a short-term memory bank. And we have other parts of your memory. You can get implicit memories into your cerebellum, and there's all that. But let's just talk memory, short-term, negative emotions mostly, but processing center. There's others, but it turns on this like alert. Is there an alert? Is there a problem? It's also in there, very interestingly, is your hypothalamus, which I find fascinating because I was so focused on the HPA axis when I was healing because I knew I had Addison's disease. So basically my body wasn't making cortisol apparently without drugs. And that's part of the HPA axis. So the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and the adrenals. And I learned a lot about sort of the precursors and how your brain is signaling, what to do. And there's just such an overlap. So complete overlap with the endocrine and all those systems. And so because the hypothalamus is in your limbic system. So you got a limbic system with so far amygdala, hippocampus, what did I say? Hypothalamus. And then the last one is your cingulate, gyrus, which is they're perceiving threats incoming your body, whether it is viruses, chemicals, just toxins, different things coming into your body, food. It's there going, is this a problem? Is it not a problem? So it's important because if it's deciding you got a problem, you don't really have a choice at that point because your body is going to start to do the things that a sympathetic nervous system does and can certainly get you more alert, can certainly get you into a more anxious state. There's not a lot of peace in that state. It's supposed to be temporary. But unfortunately, when people get stuck in these chronic fight or flight states through disease processes, they end up staying stuck and they form loops, trauma loops, we call them. Okay, so that's enough. Oh, there's also right beside that, not necessarily in the limbic system, but right close to it is your insula, which is a pain processing center, one of them. So you've also got pain processing actually happening right there in the brain as well. So that's why maybe you've noticed sometimes that there's more pain when there's stress going on. There's a connection there between what's your limbic system firing out, what's lighting up in your brain, what's being signaled, problem, pain. Is there pain? Is there like, do we need to be concerned with this pain? And there's just misfiring that's happening. So why does that misfiring happen? I think that one thing that I've tried to help people understand, because they've come to me from the ones who've come to me from brain retraining from a secular lens have seen, oh, I have limbic system resistance and my limbic system needs to be fixed. And I'm like, ooh, I get what you're saying on one level. You're getting it that it's your brain. But what is your limbic system ultimately? There's a bunch of organs, and humans have just labeled this in a way that makes sense for us, especially us who are in the Western world and the way the grid that we think in, we compartmentalize a lot of things. Chinese medicine, Eastern world, they don't do that. They see someone as like a whole person. There's a lot of connection between organs, emotions. Even the Bible talks about this, to be honest. Our bowels are actually, mercy is a word. It's like the moving of the bowel, like this gut bowel compassion, which I think I've heard the definition of mercy is like the nurturing care of an infant in its most vulnerable state. But anyway, so there's other connections with emotions like kidneys and organs like kidneys. And this is actually in the Bible too. So yeah, there's a different grid, but in the Westernized world, we very much compartmentalize things. And so people come with that grid and they're like, okay, I've got to fix a limbic system and I have limbic system resistance. I can't get the limbic system resistance to go down. So what is limbic resistance? Let's talk about it. For those of you who aren't even brain training, get into brain retraining. Because I guarantee your stuff that you're struggling with, whether it's mental, emotional, psychological, physical, will make a lot more sense when you understand the limbic system and what limbic system resistance is. So Someone in a secular program might tell you that it is just your brain misfiring and resisting and not letting go. And your limbic system is like this 3-year-old child that needs to be comforted and told that they're safe. I'm like, sure, I can buy into that on some level, but why? Why is my limbic system doing that? And can I really separate myself? I'm a whole being. Aren't I integrated in all these ways? If my hypothalamus is a part of my limbic system, it's also part of my HPA axis. And okay, you're telling me this is the seat of my autonomic nervous system, and gosh, like there's we could just keep going here with all the different parts that are interconnected. And I really started to understand this through my own experience of what happened, which it felt like as it's gonna make me cry, opening up my heart to the Lord, receiving, yielding over to him, that my heart could be wide open for one moment and be like, wow, I'm gonna be okay. God's with me. He loves me. And the next minute, completely dissociated, derealized, horrible experience, horrible, traumatic experience. I didn't feel like I had any control over it. So somebody who does secular brain retraining would say, okay, that's limbic system resistance. So what do I do about it? What I started to learn over the course of my journey and then coaching others, and what I hopefully can bring to light, is my heart is involved in this. And again, if you go back to memory, even in the limbic system, and what's happening is my brain has recorded all the experiences I've had in my life, and the way that my heart has interpreted my journey has been recorded in my brain. And there's no judgment there, because I thought, well, what happened? Like, I had an okay life. Like, I didn't think it was that bad. Sure, my parents got divorced. I was in the middle of divorce myself. Nothing was perfect, but I didn't have anything really bad happen. So really, like, why me? Why is this happening? My heart interpreted a lot of things at a young age and over the course of my life in a way that my heart felt unsafe. And I tried to deal with it in different ways. I'm not going to get into the whole journey right now. I could go on and on and on about this, but the point is that my heart, in a sense, was just not feeling safe. In for whatever reason, there was woundedness, and I did not feel safe. And I could not connect with Jesus in those moments. I could not connect with him with all my heart. I tried and I tried and I tried, and all I wanted was the Lord. And I could not find him anywhere. And it was very challenging. But because I had learned about limbic system resistance, I was like, okay, this is a part of the process. This comes up, especially as I found that I was healing. It was like on the heels of breakthrough that then this resistance would show up. What was it? I was trying to let go and trust and receive that I'm safe and everything's going to be okay. And then there'd be just something small. It didn't even have to be conscious, but something was there, kind of lurking. And yes, is the enemy involved? Absolutely. He's the father of lies. But he didn't need to add anything to my journey at that point. I was full of the work of the devil at that point, in breaking me to sickness and disintegration and woundedness. At that point, he didn't need to add anything. It was already there. And it was recorded in my heart. And it was recorded in my brain. And so that resistance was, in a sense, me resisting God unknowingly, unconsciously. And it was, you want to call it limbic system resistance? You don't need to fix your brain. You need your heart healed. You need the Lord to mend that heart. And yeah, it's going to take time. He can do a mighty work. And I pray that the things that I share can ultimately help people get there faster than I got there. I went through every ditch. I didn't understand this perfectly when I was going through it. I was in the middle of hell as I was brain retraining and feeling like, yes, I've got this. And then boom, like everything's taken out. But the more that I didn't see myself as a failure, and the more that I saw that as I keep going, he's going to steady me. He's going to steady me. He's going to get me firmly planted on that rock of his love. And I won't be taken off of it. That's what he promises me. As I keep focusing on him, I can see that my limbic system doesn't have power over me. It's just a part of me. It's just reacting in the way that it knows how, because it's been conditioned. my heart had wounds in it unconsciously that the Lord needed to heal. I'm not telling you to go and dig, but I'm telling you that broken love, as I've been trying to explain, deprivation of love is at the root of all sickness. And his love, we resist it. In fact, if you go and try to imagine yourself him giving something beautiful to you, gift to you, loving on you, telling you how beautiful and special you are, and you've never experienced that before, or just forget what it even feels like for someone to say that to you because you've been wounded by rejection, abandonment, neglect, deprivation of love, withdrawal, just not been delighted on, not being told that you're a delight, not being told or felt like you've been cherished. That's trauma too. We've all experienced it. That can be really hard to receive, and it can just go right like that over you, and there can be a veil. Yes, the limbic system is involved wholeheartedly, and I try to guide people to learn to receive so that they can let go. They don't need to continue to hold on and just let and surrender over to God. But it's not some independent brokenness of that's just in your brain. It's brokenness in our hearts and wounds in our hearts. Things that have happened to us in this life that if there'd never been sin entering the world, never would have happened. If you'd always been perfectly loved, not only would you not be broken, but you wouldn't in turn break other people. We all do it unknowingly or just unintentionally. None of us are perfect. So that's a little overview of the limbic system. The autonomic nervous system. There's such a massive overlap with our hearts and what God wants to do in healing our hearts, and the profound impact when we integrate all of this, spirit, soul, and body, that can have on every part of you, healing all kinds of diseases in the body that have been resistant to healing. So I pray this blesses you. God bless.